Hello.
Hi there. How are you?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm good. Who else is here? Bernie's connecting. Oh, okay. Let me sure I got the time right. Hey,
Yeah.
Bernie.
Hello, Harold. How are you?
Good. How's
Hi.
Timmy doing?
Making some progress. Went to see the
Okay.
doctor. Said it takes time, but it'll be better.
Good. Is she
What?
ready for the high hurdles?
You set the bar
Not,
too high.
yeah, not this Olympics.
Yeah. Where is it this summer? Where's the Olympics?
Paris.
Oh,
Yeah. And the Winter Olympics are in Gaza. Babe.
man.
Hey, Norm, how are you?
I'm good, Yako. How are you?
Thank God well.
Good. Are you in town?
No, not yet. We'll be back Friday, God willing.
Oh,
Yeah.
with family? You're visiting family?
Actually, right now I'm at a conference
Oh,
in Miami.
oh,
Yeah, have been. But now we just got here today.
oh, very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, travel safely.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're nowhere near Baltimore.
No,
Oh, what a disaster. Hmm,
yeah, absolutely.
terrible,
What a
terrible,
sad,
terrible.
terrible story.
I have a friend driving from Toronto to Silver Spring. And my geography is foggy, but I thought you had to go through that part of, but I spoke with him today and they don't have to go through there.
Yeah, just unbelievable.
Mhm.
In many ways.
So you were out of town for
Tragic.
Purim then?
Yeah, we were in Houston.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. I hope everyone had a Freilich Purim. Okay, so we're starting section 4, volume 15, halachos of Shechianu. We've already done so far. We've done Ala Michya. We did Filas Haderech. We've just finished the section of Birchas HaGomel, and now we're going to be dealing with Birchas Shechianu. So the bracha of Shechianu is familiar to us as a staple of the holiday cycle. As recorded in the Siddur, the bracha generally accompanies lighting of candles and Kiddush at the beginning of the Chagim, as well as unique mitzvos performed during the Chagim. The text of the bracha, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, shechianu v'kimanu v'gianu zman hazeh. Indeed, this bracha is a direct and simple expression for a theme, which is reflected in assorted forms in a number of other brachos, namely, our appreciation for the gift of life. Notably, as a bracha so closely connected to the calendar and holiday cycle, the Gemara refers to the bracha by the penultimate word to its text, Zman. When we say Lazman Hazeh. Accordingly, the bracha focuses on our appreciation for the blessings of time. However, as we shall see in the Gemara Maseches Eruvin, holiday Shechianu constitutes only one category of the bracha. Shechianu is also invoked under voluntary or variable circumstances when an individual recites the bracha in connection with a personal event. Like we've been dealing with reciting a bracha for a personal event when we dealt with Hagomel. So it says in Masechta Eruvin, Mem Amid Beis, Amar Rabba. Ki Avina Bei Rav Huna, when we were by Rav Huna, Iboilon. We asked the following question. Ma'u loymar zman b'Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Do we say Shechianu on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur? Kiven demizman lizman asi. Well, it has in common the shalosh regalim that come from time to time, right? They come every year. And l'chora, Shechianu is recited when festivals that come at fixed times of the year, we do recite it. Oy Dilma, or perhaps given to Loikri Regalim, since Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are not part of the cycle of the Shalosh Regalim. The Shalosh Regalim is Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. Maybe Lo Amrina. Lo Have B'Yadi. Rav Huna, whose house they were visiting, didn't have an answer. Ki Asoy Be Rav Yehuda. When we came to the yeshiva of Rav Yehuda, oh, thank you, sister. Omar, Ana Akra Chada Tanami Amin Azman. He says, when I eat a new pumpkin, kraz, pumpkin, or gourd, I also say Shechianu. So he meant it certainly then I say it when Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur come. Amr lei, rishus lo kamaboili. You decide to eat pumpkin or gourd as a personal choice. That's a rishus. He kamaboili choivamai. He was questioning, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, is there an obligation to recite the blessing on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur? The Gemara concludes later in the sugya that one is obligated to recite Shechianu Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, as well as the other holidays. So, for example, in the Rosh Hashanah Kiddush, I will remind everybody, there is Shechianu that is said the night of Kiddush. Now, the second night of Rosh Hashanah, because there's a dispute in the Gemara and later on by the Poskim, whether Rosh Hashanah is considered Yoima Arichta or not. Even though it's 2 days, that really halachically it's considered one long day. And therefore, since you said Shechianu the first night, we shouldn't say Shechianu the second night if it's Yom Arichta. So therefore, we have a minig to have a new fruit on the table so therefore we fulfill all opinions. We say that Shechianu on the second night of Rosh Hashanah, thinking about the new fruit, or wearing a new suit or a new tie. Same din by blowing the shofar, that we blow the shofar both days. You said so for example, by Sukkot, you shake the lulav the first day, you make Shechianu, that's it. Just because you take the lulav on the second day, third day, fourth day, you don't make another Shechianu. So similarly, by Tekiyah Shofar, on the second day, because of this Yom HaRichta problem, the minig is for the Baal Toikeya to have a new tie. And therefore, the Shechianu somehow goes on the new tie as well, to fulfill all opinions that maybe it's a Yom HaRichta. On Yom Kippur, we say the Shechianu, there's no Kiddush, obviously. When we eat Erev Yom Kippur, it's not Yom Kippur yet, so we don't make a Kiddush there. In Shul, right after Kol Nidre, the Chazan recites a Shechianu, and we answer Amen to it. So we do say Shechianu for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, even though it comes Mizman Lizman, even though it's not part of the Gimel Ugol. In addition, as indicated in this Gemara, one recites Shechianu when enjoying a season's new produce. Allah also identifies other similar circumstances for the bracha, such as wearing new clothing of note and hearing various kinds of good news. We're going to learn that if someone is the beneficiary of a Yerusha, you say Shechianu when you're given the news. In the present Shir, we will learn many of the halachos relating to these latter instances of Shechianu, which we may term the variable Shechianu, meaning Shechianu that comes along based on your personal behavior. It's not a choiva that comes along mizman lizman. Before we discuss the details, it's important to note that the Gemara does not issue a definitive ruling as to whether reciting the variable Shechianu is optional or obligatory, meaning the final question placed to Rav Yehuda had to do with the saying a Shechianu on the new fruit. They were basically asking him, do you have a choice? That means if you want, you can say Shechianu, or is it a choiv? And the Gemara never really responded. It is understandable then that some people are lenient not to recite this bracha and adopt a position that is optional, as the Ramah observes. Yesha kosvu, shenagu lahakal bebracha zu, she'ena choiv el rishus. That in general, this bracha is a rishus, means it's not obligatory. You have the choice to make it. And some are lenient. And actually, this refers to the Hatova Meitiv. That's, I think, the bracha that you make when you get a Yerusha, the Hatova Meitiv. And that some are lenient about this because, remember, we have a general principle that brachas are rabbinic. And whenever you have a suffix, so suffix brachas la'akel, meaning you don't recite the bracha because it's mentioning the name of Hashem. So whenever we're misupik, whether we should make a bracha or not, so that's basically what the Ramah is dealing with. Since it's not we're not sure whether it's a rishus or not, some people are makel and not make the bracha. Although the Chafetz Chaim in the Mishnah Berurah Bir Halacha writes that one should nevertheless recite Shechianu when one has the opportunity to do so. This approach that the variable Shechianu is optional impacts significantly on the custom not to recite the Shechianu in many situations, and we will see later in this year. One more introductory comment is in order. Although by its very nature, the variable Shechianu is not recited in consistent and regular intervals, as in every bracha, it serves the function of generating a heightened awareness of Hashem in our lives. It's sort of divine revelation. Accordingly, the Taz writes, in the name of the El Yerabah, of the great importance in finding opportunities to recite this bracha. Says the Taz, Isra b'Yerushalmi, Perak Asar Yuchsin, Yishmu Amim v'Yismachu, Amrav Bon, Osid Adam Litein Din v'Cheshbon. A man in the future is going to have to give an accounting for himself in Shemayim. Al Sharamine Megadim v'Loachal. He saw great delicacies and he didn't eat them, and therefore didn't make a bracha on them. Rav Lazar Mitzamtzem Priti, he would save his coins. Lemechol bahon mikol milei chodesh. He would always want to have coins in his pocket so he could buy new things to eat, and therefore make a bracha. The cause of b'tashbat satam kidei laharbos bebracha is to make brachas. Thus, despite its unusual features, Shechianu is an important bracha with its own role and unique halachas. Now, when do we recite Shechianu upon new food? Rabbah records that Rav Yehuda told him that he recites Shechianu when he ate a new gourd. The Rishonim debate what precisely triggers the bracha. According to Rashi, Rav Yehuda would recite Shechianu upon first seeing the gourd. Akro chadata, kishani roeh, dalas. When he saw pumpkin, chadasha, yishal shana, aminazman. He would recite Shechianu. So he wouldn't wait until he ate it. He would see it. Rashi is not alone in interpreting the Gemara this way. The Rambam rules that Shechianu is occasioned merely by seeing a new fruit. Haroa pri, hamischadish mishal, somebody sees a new fruit. Betchilas riyosum, when he first sees it, he should say Shechianu. The Rosh disagrees and writes that the prevalent practice is to recite Shechianu specifically when eating the fruit. The Rosh in the Gemara in Eruvin, Gimel, Halacha Yud, that Rav Yehuda would say that I would make a Shechianu upon a new gourd. Perish Rashi, Kshani Roa also. Rashi, like we learned, explains it when he saw it. However, the Rosh says, Nagu ha'olam, the practical minhag of the people is ligboa bracha b'shah she'ochel min chadash. When you eat from a new species, so that's when you recite the Shechianu. The Shulchan Aruch writes that seeing a new fruit triggers Shechianu, because he's sort of following the Rambam, but the dominant practice is to recite when eating the fruit. The Ramah comments that it remains valid to recite Shechianu upon seeing the new fruit. Haroeh pri chadash, mischadish b'shana l'shana. You see a new fruit, v'ak Shechianu. You see your friend eating it, or you see it on the tree. However, the practical minig is not to make the bracha until you eat it. Says the Ramah, but you didn't lose out if you made the bracha when you saw it. Ve'ein levarech ad shenigmar tashlum gidul apri. You don't recite until the fruit is completely grown. And if you saw it the first time, you didn't make the bracha, you can still make the bracha when you see it the second time. The Mishnah Berurah explains why the poskim ultimately favored reciting Shechianu when eating it. Dami shein libo samech b'riyoso, rak b'achilaso. The kulam mevarach rak achilaso. Someone who's not happy when he sees it, but he's only happy when he eats it. So certainly, it makes sense that he should make the bracha only when he eats it. And therefore, l'kach nagu tamid b'zeh mishum lo plug. Now, people are different. Some people will be happy when they see a new fruit growing on a tree. But because they don't want to have sort of complicating or conflicting reasons, they made a general rule. So the Ktsos explains, when the Ramah states that one who recites the bracha upon seeing it has not lost anything, he is referring to a person who enjoys seeing it as well. But even the Ramah would agree that a person who does not particularly derive pleasure from seeing the new fruit should make sure to recite the bracha when eating it. Now, according to Lo Plug, the halacha favors a universal practice over its numerous exceptions and practice of personal preference, so as to minimize confusion, disagreements. Meaning, if the halacha would have been left that this guy makes it when he sees the fruit, and this guy makes it when he eats it, so we're not practicing in a uniform way. That's the problem of Lo Plug. We want to do everything together. In this case, it's also possible that a majority of people today do not experience significant joy merely by seeing the fruit, but only when eating it. In addition to this reason for the custom to recite the bracha before eating, the Lavush offers a different reason. He explains that a person does not always pay attention closely when seeing the fruit, whereas when eating, at least as part of a meal, a person will more likely focus on his eating and experience the joy of the newness. So, significantly, although the universal convention is to delay Shechianu until eating, the cited Rishonim and the Shulchan Aruch all agree in principle that it is appropriate to recite Shechianu merely upon seeing a new fruit. The Rambam even places this halacha alongside the law of reciting Shechianu upon seeing a friend. This fact may have a number of halachic implications. Among other things, the Bir Halacha, the Mishnah Berurah, posits that if a person sees a new fruit upon a tree on Shabbos, such that it cannot be eaten now, because you can't pick it, he should recite Shechianu upon seeing it alone. Near the Afim Roa b'Shabbos and Yachal L'Tal Shalachlo, that if you see a new fruit on a tree, which of course on Shabbos you can't pluck and eat it, Afilu Hachi Yivarech, that was for Nigmar Apri. Ella, the Aryahu de Reviale, there's a lion sort of sitting, preventing you from acting on eating it, because it's Shabbos. Shabbos is the lion, is basically what he's saying. There happens to be a reason why you can't do it, so do it the other way by reciting it upon seeing it. In addition, the halacha brura to this Simon writes that a person may recite Shechianu upon seeing a fruit that one will not be eating at all for medical or financial reasons. Let's say a person knows he's allergic to the fruit, or it's too expensive. If it brings the person excitement or joy merely to see the fruit, you can recite the bracha, that's such a person. Later, we will also see that some argue that the law of seeing the fruit will impact whether Shechianu should be recited before you make a boy priya eitz. Like, we know the minig is to make the bracha for the fruit, then you say shechianu. But this law of seeing the fruit will impact that aspect of the din. If someone neglects to recite the bracha of shechianu at the first moment, when it is invoked, either when eating or seeing the new fruit, is the opportunity to recite the bracha lost completely? This is addressed in the Piskei Teshuvos, where it is ruled that one who is still in the middle of eating the fruit may recite the bracha. If the person is still eating the fruit for the first time. You've eaten more than just the taste. You've even eaten more than kazayas. If you're not satiated by eating the fruit, and he wants to continue eating from it, you can say the shechianu. The joy is being prolonged. He's happy that he ate the new fruit. But if you only remembered that you didn't say shechianu until after you've eaten the quantity of the fruit that you hadn't planned to eat, then you shouldn't make shechianu again. Even though the food hasn't digested in your body. So the Piskei Teshuvah says, when you eat the fruit again a second time later on, you'd say the shechen without Shema Malchus. The Mishnah Berurah brings the same din. Person who's careful in halacha, it's better to don't take the same fruit that you already ate the first time and you forgot shechianu, and now you can eat it a second time. Better to take a fruit that he's never eaten yet. Have in mind the other fruit that you had eaten and hadn't made it, and you have in mind the new fruit, and that's a better approach to take. And the Yalkut Yosef takes the same approach. Person forgot to say shechianu. He cannot recite it again when he eats from that fruit. If he wants, he could say shechianu without Shem of Hashem. Let him find another new fruit. He should have in mind the fruit that he had forgotten to say shechianu, and keep that in mind as well. Or listen to somebody else reciting shechianu. Okay. Now, what is the geder of a new fruit? How do we define newness? We started this sugya with the Gemara's account of Rav Yehuda, who would recite shechianu on a new gourd. What are the parameters which define what is considered new? We saw in source 6 that the Rambam defines a new fruit as one which renews once a year. While many common trees produce fruit in one season every year, some trees produce fruit during 2 seasons of the year. For these fruits, because they ripen more frequently, their arrival on trees and in the market may generate less excitement of newness. The Beis Yosef addresses the somewhat ambiguous status of these fruits with regards to shechianu. This is the Beis Yosef, the commentary on the Tur. Priya mischadish pamayim b'shana, a fruit that comes out twice a year. Efshar debar mizman lizman mikri, it's still considered something that comes from time to time. And he says, Movarchin Allah b'chol pam shechianu. You do say shechianu each time. Avala Rambam kosav, priya mischadish mishana l'shana. The Rambam was careful to say it's got to be a fruit a new one each year. V'chein kosav Rabbeinu. The Beis Yosef points out that the Tur, that's who he refers to as Rabbeinu, says the same thing. So the Beis Yosef says clearly that a fruit that comes twice a year, you don't say shechianu. It's not dafka year to year. That was what typical. So in the end, the Tur wrote that twice a year person doesn't. But the Beis Yosef is questioning that it was lav dafka, that language. And he ends up saying that a fruit that renews twice a year, you do recite shechianu. Thus, Rav Yosef Kar speculates that shechianu may be warranted even when the fruit emerges more than one time over the course of a year. As we saw in source 8, when codifying the Halach Shulchan Aruch, he mentions fruits that renew from year to year and does not explicitly address fruits which grow twice a year. The Ramah later addresses the issue directly, and he rules that one does recite shechianu even upon fruits which are produced twice a year. Prishim is chadish beis pamim b'shanim avarchol of shechianu. Many authorities, both Sephardic and Ashkenazic, rule like the Ramah. However, thus far, we have addressed only the question of whether these fruits are subject to shechianu altogether. The poskim also debate how many times the bracha should be recited over the course of a year. The Kaf HaChaim writes that even for a fruit which is produced twice a year, shechianu is recited only once. I guess you have to choose which time you're going to do it. Umizeh shelo yizker haramah v'hagol avarchol shnei pamim k'mo shekasav Beis Yosef efshar shadai to lasos pshara. The Ramah was making a compromise between the Shulchan Aruch and the Beis taking upon the opinion of the Beis Yosef. Vein levar kim dafka pamachas. The chein nir medivrei alavush shlo yizker levar shnei pamim. The Lavush also never said to recite the shechianu twice. V'chein u'minig ha'olam shein levar kim b'pamachas dafka pamarisha. So let's say a certain fruit is produced. A new fruit comes out in April, and it comes out again in September. So the first time you eat it is when you'd say the shechianu. I guess September, because that's the new year. The Kaf HaChaim reads the Ramah's comments literally, and he argues that the Ramah means only to say that these fruits are subject to shechianu like other fruits, which emerge at one time during the year. Nonetheless, in his understanding, shechianu is not recited more than once. By contrast, as noted in the Piskei Teshuvos, the simpler implication of the Ramah appears to be that the fruits are subject to shechianu whenever they are grown, even twice a year. They don't make the diuk of the Kaf HaChaim, but they take the Ramah at face value. And afilu pamayim b'shana. In this season you ate it, and next season you ate it, you make it twice. In many places, it may be possible to obtain a number of different varieties of a given fruit, such as apples, grapes, plum, and pears. If someone recites shechianu upon one variety of a given fruit, does the bracha also apply to the other varieties of the same fruit throughout the same season? An early discussion of this issue is found in the Tzurba M'Rabanan. Tzurba M'Rabanan is a rishon. Kain shamati mechad ma'gdolim, shoyre ki inyan zeh. I heard from one of the gedolim that they paskin like this. Kigon shem ochel ubirach kvar ala gudgoniot, cherries, shekorim kirshen, Choizer Mavark Zman al also Shekorin Weichselen o Amerlin. Sour cherries. Ubish Uviesh Artsos Shekorin Akol Kirschen. In other countries, they're all called cherries. Eli Le'ilan Korin Kirschen Adomim. The trees are called red. Ule'elu Shchormin, these are called black. But he would make a shechanu on each one. They were considered two different species. So the Shulchan Aruch rules accordingly. In Birch Shechianu al Shirzas, Kishiyochal Gidnash Chazvach Shechianu. The terms employed in Shulchan Aruch are used interchangeably to refer to cherries in today's Spanish, and it's difficult to discern which varieties he's describing. George, is this anything like this in Spanish?
Trying to understand that, I'm not sure.
No, Sarah's,
Cerezas is definitely Spanish.
Sarah's-
Guindas are both terms that I've used
and referring to as cherries?
as cherries.
As cherries.
Typically, for me, the guindas have been the ones that have been processed, whereas the ones that are raw is cerezas. And
So the normal Spanish word for cherries is what?
cereza.
Wow. So the Shulchan Aruch, Rav Yosef Karo lived in Spain.
Yes, cereza.
Yeah. So it's very good. So he gave us the Spanish for cherry. So what is the critical criterion that separates one variety of fruit from another? The Magen Avraham writes that even if two fruits share a common name, if they have a different appearance, then they are considered different fruits. So what are we saying here? A green apple and a red apple are considered two different species? That seems to be what the Magen Avraham is saying. Afilu im birch, afilu in chokin bishmon. Apple is an apple is an apple. Im chalukin b'tamon, but if they taste differently, could go into enim levenim letenim mishchorim. White figs, black figs. Beis minayin. So writes the Levush. V'kach kozu b'tshuvas Mariel. Dafilu beis minei agasim. Right? He says two types of pears, or two types of tapuchim, or egozim or nuts. Mavarchim, you would make a different shechianu on each type of thing you eat. Now, the Mishnah Brura, Rav Yisrael Meir Kagan notes that the Vilna Gaon and other Achronim were not convinced that the relatively mild distinctions between different varieties of the same fruits were substantial enough to merit separate recitations of shechianu. The Bir Agra mefakpik b'chol. So the Vilna Gaon disagreed with all of this. The Docha Rayoison, he disproved them. Umashma shadatu the kivin shebe'etzem u'minechad. They're all the same species. Dai b'mashabirch b'pam rishona. If in the beginning of the year, the first time he ate a new apple, he made a shechianu, he doesn't have to make new shechianus and all the other types of apple. V'chein to say for more tzia, that's Rav Yaakov Emden, the famous Achron, who had major disputes with Rav Yonasan Eibshitz, well known in the last 200 years. So Hevi b'shem Aviv HaChacham Tzvi, the Rav Yaakov Emden's father was the Chacham Tzvi. He also passed in the same way. These are major Achronim that we follow. In the Sharat Tziyun, the Chofetz Chaim offers a more concrete ruling that both positions are valid, but it's best to avert the controversy altogether. Udavid Kamar Avid, Udavid Kamar. If you can conduct yourself either way. V'tov yoser sheikach pri shel min chadash adayin lo birach aleh. Chavin lo tzigam et zeh. He says, let's say you've already eaten a red apple, and 2 months later you have a green apple. We have this debate, well, should you make a shechen or not? He says, better take a fruit that's a real new fruit for you, and then have in mind, and eat the real new fruit, And have in mind that the Shechianu is gonna cover the eating of the second type of an apple, which is a different type of an apple. That's basically what the Mishnah Berurah is advising us to do. It should be noted that this whole debate really applies only to varieties which are quite distinct in their taste. In the case of different varieties of oranges or apples, which have very similar tastes, these would not be considered distinct from each other, and one would not recite another shechianu according to any of the authorities. Okay, so that, I mean, there are apples that taste very different. One is sour, one is sweet, but I guess it's a basic apple, and looks like the poskim have said that oranges and apples, even though they're different types, there's no reason to say shechianu on them. Despite the ruling of the Shulchan Aruch, even recent Sephardic poskim write that a person should not recite a second shechianu upon a separate variety of a fruit upon which he has already recited shechianu. The Ben Ish Chai, who was a very important Sephardic posek in Baghdad in the late 1800s, illustrates this regarding different types of dates. Po Ireinu yesh kama minei tmar. He says that in their city, I think he lived in Baghdad, we have many dates. And there are certainly two of them that are distinct in the way they look, the way they taste, the way they smell. I'm sorry, v'shem, their name. Vehemin shekorin kistawi, umin shekorin bagavan, which are black. While kolzeh, in birich al min shekorin kastovi, lo ivar shechel al min shekorin bagban. He says, even though they're both dates, they have different names. If you've already recited shechianu on the first, you don't recite on the second. They have a different name. But they're still dates. Somebody who's medagdik in mitzvahs should bring in front of him three different species. Mashakorin kistovi, Mashakorin bagaban, Mashakorin zahidi. So two of these varieties, kistawi and zahidi, are familiar in the international date market as popular Iraqi date varieties. The identities of the others are more obscure. It may be birbin, which is grown in Iraq and Syria. So he says you should take the three types of dates, and have in mind all of them. He says in his home, my grandparents, that was our minig. They have berries, sweet, that come out in Iyar. A month later, cherries come out that are vinegar. According to some Baravi, tuti damesek. They're called Damascus berries. Okay. The Rav Ben Sion Abba Shaul, mi shebirch shechianu al te'enim or anovim shkoirim. He already said shechianu on figs or grapes, and they're black grapes. Do you repeat the shechianu when you're going to eat white figs or white grapes? He says they're the same species. You would only say it once. We will conclude this section by addressing the question of how modern storage methods and imports affect the halacha with respect to shechianu. Today, the market for fruits and vegetables has undergone transformative changes, including storage changes afforded by modern refrigeration and freezing, and the transportation changes which allow rapid shipment of produce across the world. As such, many varieties of fruits and vegetables are available for purchase uninterruptedly throughout the year, and the consumer may be completely unaware of when the year's crops grow and become available. The halachic implications of these changes are considered in this major summary from the contemporary halachic guide V'zos HaBracha. L'fia klalim shevenu le'el, based on the principles, kol minei peros v'yirokos, hamitzuim b'shuk kol hashana mishum shegdelim kol hashana b'sodos b'chamamois. Fruits and vegetables that are in the market all year because they grow in fields all year, or field or greenhouses. You go on bananas, limonim, lemons, chasa, lettuce, agvaniot, tomatoes, pilpil, peppers, malafafon, cucumbers. V'chein al peirot v'yirakot hamuchasanim b'meshech hashana. You have fruits and vegetables that are being stored in warehouses, bevate kirur, in refrigeration, yuchadim. They mitzuyim tadir b'shuk b'tzura triya, and they're in a fresh state all year. To go on tapuach adama, potatoes, gezer carrots, kruv cabbage, botzel onions, agasim pears, tmorim dates, lachim, fresh dates, tapuchim apples. I mean, it used to be 40 years ago, 50 years ago, we would see certain fruits at a certain time in the year, and then you wouldn't see them again. That's what we were used to. But they're pointing out that now that's not the case. Many of these things are in our markets all year round. Roasted nuts. We don't know this is new, this is old. Can go on botnim, peanuts, garinei dalas, pumpkin seeds, chamaniot, sunflower seeds. The same thing as egos is a walnut, shkedim is almonds. V'chein al peres yuveshim, dried fruits. Shemitzum kol hashana. Go to Hadley's or any of the dried fruits that we have now. It's delish. Sells dried fruits all year round. They nikar ben chodesh liyosha. Go on tmarim yaveshim, dried dates. Te'enim, dried figs. Papaya yavesha, dried papaya. Hummus. Chickpeas v'chadoime. He says, "Ein mevarchem aleim shechianu." So on all of these things, we don't say shechianu. V'hu adin al zeisim ein mevarchem kivin she'ein heim nikarim b'chidusham. We don't know in the market when the new olives come. V'chein al kamenu pitrios, mushrooms. Ein levarch shechianu she'en zman kavua. There's no set time. Number one, they grow by themselves. They're not even considered product of the earth. Even on wine, you don't recite shechianu. Even though you know that it's from the new grape yield, there's no distinction, new, old. Kozva poskim, shehu adin b'mitzah novim, grape juice, hamatzui b'shuk, shen mevarch alav shechianu, kishabam ma'iv l'chadash. When it comes from the new batch, we still don't say shechianu. Kivan shen nikar ben chadash liyosh. He says, Ach al rov sugi perush ena mitzum kol hashana b'shuk. Even fruits that in general don't appear in the market a whole year, kagon, avocado, avatiach, watermelon, afarsek, peaches, guava, duvdevan, which are cherries, chavush, quinces, lychee, mango, mishmish, which is an apricot, anavim, grapes, petel, raspberries, tzabar, cactus, shazif, plums, tutsadet, strawberries.
Tusade's
So-
wild strawberries, no? Whatever.
No, I think tutsadeh is a name for strawberries. Right, well, would you just say tut? I think tutsadeh is strawberries.
Berries.
So mavar shechianu. So you do say shechianu on these. Valpri adar, citrus fruits, mavar shechianu ba'onosam, in their season. Avul pish mitzum kol hashana shenikarim b'chidusham. There we know that they're new. Now,
I think even that's changed. I think even strawberries, a whole year and you don't know when it's from.
right? And do we really know that oranges are in? I don't know when the new oranges come out. It seems like there's oranges all year.
Right. I think even
Ralph.
this is changed since he wrote it.
Yep. Tapuche ana. I don't know what the ana apples. What is that? Does anybody know what that is? Yesh shaharu shekashem she'enam mevarach al rov sugya tapuchim hamitzuyim kivan shelo nikarim bechidusham. Same thing. We don't recognize new apples. Kachenu mevarach al sug tapuch hakori ana. These ana apples. Avol bishu nikar bechidusho. That's an apple that I guess you do know when it's new in the market. Shekivan shekol tapuchim mitzum kol hashana. The general categories of apples are present all year. Ein simcha miyuchedesh bechidusha. There's no special joy. Oh, now we have apples. V'uadin besugi agasim anikorim bechidusham. Some kind of pears are known when they come out new. Achtov lepatra bevicha shechedesh v'varach al priyach. Better to cover with a shechianu that you know on a real new fruit. Yesh la'ir. He makes a note. Sha'teknika shel ichsun v'achzaka lizman. The technology that's allowing us to store for longer periods of time, and mushach mitkademet mishana gets more advanced year by year. V'lachein yitachnu minim sha'ad hayom hayu mitzuyim rak ba'onos b'yisomas v'tayim tzukol shana. Like what Yaakov said, there might be species that used to be only available during a specific season that are not available the whole year, and will change. But he says the majority of fruits in Chutz La'aretz, outside of Eretz Yisrael, we don't recognize a new season. Fruits that are present all year, sometimes fruits that are normally available may become unavailable. Shipping problem, weather conditions, right? Means we have to be aware of what's going on in the market. We may notice no whatever for 6 months. Now, all of a sudden we see it again and we find out there was some technical problem. There we might have to say Shechian. So according to these guidelines of Zos HaBracha, one should not recite Shechian upon fruits that are available all year round, unless a visible difference between the different crop exists. As is noted in Israel, there are still many fruits that are only available in season, and you would recite Shechianu on them. By contrast, in many places in the diaspora, such as the United States, many fruits are imported from other countries and are available all year, and such that one would not recite Shechianu on them. Okay. I'm going to stop here. We'll discuss next week, what do you do first? the bracha on the food and then Shechianu? What about when you buy new clothing or other new possessions? Or when you see a friend? And that will conclude Bircha Shechianu. Any comments, questions, issues, things you want to bring up? Okay. Have a good week, everybody. For those in the Daf Yomi, we'll be doing Daf in 6 minutes at 9 o'clock. And have a good week. Next week, Tuesday night, 8 p.m. like always.
You will. Thank you.
Those of you in the
Have a good
Navi
one.
Shir, we'll be doing the Navi Shir, God willing, Sunday night, 8 p.m.
You will.